Super Bowl 57 is right around the corner. This is Kate's Takes, and here's my prediction. Super Bowl 57 takes place in Glendale, Arizona in the State Farm Arena, and it's the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Kansas City Chiefs. I am super excited for this matchup, and there's certainly a lot of topics I'd like to talk about before making my prediction. So with that being said, let's get right into it. The first team I'd like to talk about would be the Philadelphia Eagles. Two words come to mind when I think about this team: explosive and physical. The Eagles had one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL. To start this off, the Eagles have an MVP candidate in quarterback Jalen Hurts. Hurts threw 3,701 yards, which is 10th in passing, had 35 total touchdowns, 6 interceptions, which is the 4th least in the league, and a 66.3 QBR, which is 4th in the league. Not to mention that Hurts had a 14-1 record when he was a starter, helping the Eagles clinch the number 1 seed in the NFC. Hurts' spectacular season as the Eagles starting quarterback led him to an MVP nomination. Before the season started, the Eagles saw the potential in Jalen Hurts and did what any franchise should do for their quarterback: surround him with talent on the offensive side of the field and the defensive side of the field. The Eagles traded for a number 1 wide receiver in A.J. Brown and also drafted pieces to this team that made it an elite offense. With A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Miles Sanders, and Kenneth Gainwell, there's no way that the Eagles offense couldn't be anything less than explosive. The Eagles offense is strong all around, but what they excel in the most is the run game. Miles Sanders recorded almost 1,300 rushing yards along with 11 rushing touchdowns, and Jalen Hurts had 760 rushing yards with 13 rushing touchdowns. This rushing attack couldn't have been done without the work of the Eagles' offensive line, which consists of Jordan Mailata, Jason Kelce, and Lane Johnson, just to name a few. Now we have the Eagles' defensive side of the ball. The Eagles did make a splash in free agency when it came to defense. They traded for C.J. Gardner-Johnson, they signed James Bradbury, and they signed Hassan Reddick, which has been the steal of last free agency, might I add. The Eagles moved Reddick into the edge position, and he went ballistic this season. I think he got snubbed for nomination of Defensive Player of the Year, actually. Reddick had 16 sacks, which is 2nd in the NFL, and 5 forced fumbles, which is 1st in the NFL. The Eagles made NFL history as 4 players on that team now have 10-plus sacks. Hassan Reddick had 16, Josh Sweat with 11, Javon Hargrave with 11, and Brandon Graham with 10. The Eagles had the most sacks of any team in the 2022 season with 70 sacks, which is 2 sacks away from the 1984 Chicago Bears record. The Eagles also have quite the backfield with players such as C.J. Gardner-Johnson, James Bradbury, and Darius Slay, just to name a few players. Now to the concerns with this team. Hurts is the T7th most sacked quarterback in this league, and part of the reason is because he is a running quarterback and he likes to extend the play. However, with his shoulder, I don't think that it's good for Jalen Hurts to get hit a lot during this Super Bowl. The second concern I have would be the Eagles' run defense. The Eagles' defense is still very elite, but I feel like the number 1 problem for this team in general would be their run defense. The Philadelphia defense ranked just 23rd in the league in preventing runs of 10 or more yards during the regular season. And with Pacheco and McKinnon, this is a little bit of a concern for me. The last concern I have with the Philadelphia Eagles would be the inexperience when it comes to big games like this. I think there are only 7 players on this Eagle roster that were there for Super Bowl 52. Ever since Patrick Mahomes has been the quarterback for the Chiefs, they've seen nothing but big playoff games and Super Bowls. Now let's talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. Before the season began, there was a lot of questions circulating around Kansas City's offense due to Tyreek Hill being traded to the Miami Dolphins. Fast forward to now, and Kansas City's offense still gets it done. Yes, Kansas City's offense does look a little different without Tyreek Hill, but with Travis Kelce, Juju Smith-Schuster, Kadarius Toney, who they traded at the deadline, Isaiah Pacheco, and Jerick McKinnon, they definitely handle business. Kansas City scored the most points by a team in 2022 with 496 points. The team that trailed them, the Eagles, with 477. The Chiefs definitely have the better quarterback of the matchup in Patrick Mahomes, who is the likely MVP of this season. Mahomes threw for 5,250 yards, which is 1st in the league, 41 touchdowns, which is 1st in the league, 12 interceptions, and a 77.5 QBR, which is 1st in the league. Mahomes also has 4 rushing touchdowns. The Kansas City Chiefs also have better coaching for this matchup. Andy Reid, who has a lengthy resume, goes against his former team, the Philadelphia Eagles, and as for Nick Sirianni, this is his first Super Bowl. Even though Sirianni coached a very good Eagles team into success, I still am taking Andy Reid for the coaching of this matchup. Lastly, the Chiefs have Chris Jones, which is a Defensive Player of the Year nominee. He is one of the best defensive tackles in the league. Jones had 15.5 sacks, which is 4th in the league, and 2 forced fumbles. Chris Jones has dominated the whole entire season, so I am very curious to see the matchup between the Eagles' offensive line and Jones. I'm also curious to see how the Kansas City Chiefs go against the Eagles' run defense with Pacheco and McKinnon, because the number one flaw of the Philadelphia Eagles would be their run defense. However, I do have some concerns about Kansas City. The number one thing would be Patrick Mahomes' ankle. High ankle sprains take weeks to heal, so Mahomes is not 100% for this game. However, this is Patrick Mahomes, so this is not as big of a concern for me compared to other people. Mahomes did have a fantastic game against the Bengals that led them to the Super Bowl, and I think Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy will know how to play around with Patrick Mahomes' ankle injury. Probably my number one concern with the Kansas City Chiefs is that I feel like their offensive line has a huge test that they may not be able to handle. The Eagles' defensive line is a powerhouse, and if the Kansas City's offensive line doesn't adjust, Patrick Mahomes will be harassed the whole entire night, which is not good for him to be scrambling around with a bad ankle. We all know what happened to the Kansas City Chiefs the last time their offensive line could not adjust to a defensive line, which would be Super Bowl 55. Now, let's move on to my prediction. Both of these teams are amazing and deserve to be here at the Super Bowl, but there can be only one winner. And my prediction is the Philadelphia Eagles. This is the most complete NFL team I've seen in years, and I feel like this team doesn't have to rely on a single player because they're so deep and stacked. I am worried that the Chiefs will rely too much on an injured Patrick Mahomes, which is why I'm taking the Philadelphia Eagles for this matchup. I do think this will be a nail-biting close game with lead changes, but I feel like Philly's defense will win Philly this Super Bowl. My score prediction for this game is 34-28 Eagles. What are your guys' thoughts on the Super Bowl, and who do you think's gonna win? Let me know in the comments down below. This is Kate's Takes. See ya for the next video.